Hello everyone, welcome back for part 2 of how to make a Falcon controller. So this is for the F16 V4 Pixel controller with one expansion for 32 ports total. All of the hardware used in this video came from wiredwatts.com, and you select what you need off the build your own controller options off of that. So we're going to show you how to put this all together. In part 1 we showed how to prep this box. So now we're ready to go and start putting some of the hardware in. Everything in this video is sped up to try to make the video as short as possible while still showing how everything gets put back together. We have the first back plate that's going to go on the bottom that all these power supplies are going to get connected to. These screws are the power supply that go through the back plate. Should be the shortest screws in the packs that you have. So in total we have 4 power supplies. We're going to have 2 on top of each other. So we're going to have to put some brackets on 2 of them. Here's the brackets. We're going to hook them up, and I'll show you how I offset them and what that's going to look like. So here I'm just going to have this one face to the left as the bottom one is facing to the right. Later on you'll see why we do this, because we power the boards on one side from one set, and from the other set we power the other side of the boards. Now that all the brackets are screwed onto the power supplies, those are ready to go. We're going to put all the bolts in. There's 4 that are extra long. We want those to be in the bottom left, the bottom right, the top left, and the top right. And all the shorter bolts are going to go on all the other holes. Here are the spacers, because we don't want these power supplies sitting right on top of each other. This gives them a little extra room. So with this top one, this is showing if you were to put it on with no offset. And if you were going to do it like that, you would have to make sure all your wiring was done, because you're not going to be able to get to the screws. So the bottom one is offset, and we're going to end up fixing the top one to mirror that one as well. We're going to run these nuts all the way down, get them a little bit snug, not over tight. We're going to offset these power supplies to make it easier to hook all the electrical up to it. If you wanted to hook the electrical up to it first, prior to securing them on this board, you could do that, and then you could keep it flush with each other. But by doing the offset, you could see all the wires, and you can see the lights showing that they have power. These are the AC power cores. I'm going to get rid of the outer coating to expose the 3 wires underneath. I'm kind of measuring how long I'm going to need them, because I'm going to loop these wires around the screw on the bottom power supply, and then I'm going to stick it in the top power supply, and we're going to do this for both sides. We're going to put the P9 cable glands in, and we're going to run this wire right through it before we hook it up to our power supplies. So in order to feed both of these, we're going to kind of put a loop in the wire around the screw and then screw each one in. So the black wire on the power supplies, those are labeled L. The white wire is going to go to the N, and the green wire is going to go to the ground. Here I'm just snugging everything up to make sure I didn't miss one, and we're going to repeat this whole process for the other two power supplies. Here we're just going to plug it in and make sure we get some power. If you have a voltmeter, right now would be a good idea to test these power supplies and make sure they're sending out the right voltage. There is an adjustment screw, it's a little white screw on those to just adjust that. We're going to set this aside for now, and we're going to get ready to mount the controller board and the expansion board to the second backer board. So we have the thin, longer screws, some nuts, and the plastic spacers. Now the plastic spacers are going to go between the boards and the mounting board. Here's the Falcon controller itself, and the smaller one is the expansion board. Now there is a ribbon that goes from the controller to the expansion. It would be a good idea to set that up now before screwing anything in. You're going to see how I kind of have to loosen things up to fish it under. So I hook the ribbon up to the Falcon board and run it through the opening at the bottom, and then I come behind and up the opening at the top and then hook it into the expansion board, just so the ribbon isn't getting in any way on top, so I kind of hide it underneath. So here's where I mess around with the ribbon a little bit to make sure it doesn't twist or kink or anything like that. Just kind of make sure it runs flat. Again, I had to loosen some stuff up to try to fish it through to run through the back of this. So we just want to snug these up a little bit. Do not over tighten these or you could potentially crack the plexiglass. So that's it. Our controller and expansion are mounted to the mounting plate. And we do need to put those long spacers, and that should be the last of the spacers, and get the wing nuts, and then secure that mounting plate to those bolts. You just want to snug these up a little bit too, not too tight. So these are the next wires that we're going to have to get hooked up. These wires are going from the power supplies to the boards themselves to power them. And I have the red wire for the voltage and the black wire for the grounds. This is pretty thick wire, so it's a good idea to just use a needle nose pliers or some kind of pliers for the bends. I tried to measure these about the lengths that I would need them. I think I had to cut one extra wire because I had got one a little too short. So if I didn't offset these power supplies, I would have to do this whole process before I mount those on top of each other because I wouldn't be able to get to those screws. Even offsetting them like this, it was a little difficult because of the mounting board that the controller is mounted to, but I was still able to get to those screws okay. The red wire is going from the positive voltage on the power supply up to the voltage onto the controller boards. There are 3 positive voltages on power supply and 3 negative voltages, you can hook them up to any one of those that you want. The black wire is going from the negative voltage on the power supply to where it's labeled ground on the controllers. It is a good idea to use pliers when you're tightening and untightening on the controller board so you don't put extra stress on those connections. So now we have those 2 power supplies done. We're going to move over to the other 2 to power the other side of the 2 boards and just repeat that process for that side. I'm just trying to route the wires in a way so they kind of look neat, so it just doesn't look all disorganized. Test them out, make sure I get power to everything, and it looks like we're good to go. We have to take all these connectors off because this is what our pigtails are going to connect to. So I have to take all these off in order to hook all those up. So we're going to put this in the box and secure it with 4 screws. These are the P7 cable glands that all our pigtails are going to go through before connecting them to the board. So next on the list, we have these heat shrink numbers that also came, and we're going to just use a heat gun to shrink these on there, and we're going to do all this before hooking anything up to the boards. Having these numbers on is definitely going to make it easier when you're hooking props up to them, so you don't have to try to backtrack and figure out which number you're hooking them up to for your layout. I started on the expansion board first because I wanted that to be at the bottom of the box. So that's why I kind of went backwards on these. Just make sure the right number is marked up to the right input. Since on our main board, it ends on number 16. So number 1 on the expansion board is going to start at 17. Number 2 will be 18, number 3 will be 19, and so on. So I actually started in the middle and then worked my way outwards. I thought it'd be a little bit easier doing it that way because the wires start getting in each other's way. So we skipped ahead a little bit here. The whole left side of that expansion board is done, and now we're working on the right side. We're just trying to make sure all the pigtails are about even coming out of the bottom of that box, and just kind of routing things to the side so it has a clean look and it's not getting in the way of anything on the board that you might want to see. So now we're just kind of finishing up the bottom board. We didn't do anything special with the routing of the wires with the bottom board. Just make sure you're doing like the second level, because you already did levels 4 and 3 with the expansion. So the second level is first before you do the first level, because those wires will get in the way from you trying to get through those glands. So make it a little bit easier, kind of work from the bottom up. So here it is, all powered up. You can see all the lights lighting up where the fuses are, and we're just going to test out the lights right here. Going to go to the test mode, and it works. So now just to finish up, we're going to hook up the Ethernet ports. Just going to get the glands in there and hook up the ports. I was trying to find a good way to route these, kind of switch it up a little bit. I'll show you the final picture of the final product. If this is your first controller build, congratulations, you're one step closer to starting your own light show. Thanks for watching. Hope this helped you out. If you have any comments or questions, feel free to leave it.